Question Lane. Solving problems through the process of questions and answers.
Welcome to the Question Lane, where the goal is to solve problems through the process of questions and answers. Today's guest is Charles Ford, author of The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching. Mr. Ford, what would you like me to refer to you as, Mr. Ford, Charles, or what's good for you?
Charles is fine.
Charles, it will be. Perfect.
Okay.
Is there anything you want us to know about you before we get started?
No, that's a good question. No.
Okay, perfect. So I read your book, and for me, the most important takeaway from reading the book is a statement you made towards the end of the book, which is you have to always remember that you are not put on this earth to be exploited or abused. I thought that was a real profound way to kind of wrap up the book. What was your thought process on making that statement?
Well, the thought process behind that was just acknowledging that a lot of people who find themselves in adverse situations, they get so used to it, especially when you go through it a lot. You tend to get so used to being in a subdued position that you accept it. And you grow into it thinking that this is just the way things are, the natural flow of things. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. You know, I think that we should be more proactive with our lives and the situations that we encounter so that we don't walk around feeling bad and being the walking wounded and a punching bag for society. So that was the thought process behind that.
Okay. So by the cover, it seems like you're a black male. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. Why did you choose the title, The Anatomy of a Corporate Lynching?
Because I wanted to tell the story to show people how it was done, how they did what they did. And I called it anatomy because the anatomy, it shows the several parts that make up the body. And I wanted to show the several parts that made up the culmination of the corporate lynching that they used against me. I wanted to show how it was done, what they did to see to it that I was lynched corporately. And it was a number of things that they did to pile up the justification to let me go and do what they did. And that's where the title came from.
Another word that was kind of prevalent throughout the book is justice. When you use the word justice, what did you mean?
Well, I used it in different scenarios, so it depends on what I was saying at that time. Could you give me a specific statement from the book?
Yes. You said, let me see, this was at the beginning of the book here. Let me read this part right here. Mm-hmm. You said, by the time I first met Miss Mickens, so many events had transpired already in my pursuit of justice. I was overwhelmed and had no interest in anything but getting Con Edison to be held responsible for what they have done. So in that context, what did you mean when you used the word justice?
Okay, I wanted them to have to be held responsible for what they did and to implement some kind of fairness and to equalize what I felt was an injustice that was done to me. I wanted to get balance with the situation because it was unbalanced in terms of how fair things turned out.
So a policy change along with some type of compensation would have been an accurate way of describing what you meant when you used the word justice, correct?
Yeah, I would say policy change, but more so for them to acknowledge what they did and definitely compensate me for my attempt to help them out, which they clearly saw fit as far as the use of what I brought to them within the company confines, as far as like the using the term that I came to them with, the suggestion that I brought to them. Just acknowledge it and, compensate. Because rather than acknowledge what I did and what they did, they went into this thing of denial. And it forced me, being the person that I am, where I'm not going to just sit back and allow you to get away with something that clearly was not right. It forced me to have to go and incur legal fees just to get them to acknowledge what they did.
Now, towards the beginning of the book, you talked about your formation, the formation of the start of your employment at Con Edison. You talked about you were in college. This job was more of something that you had just got into, but as as the probationary period was winding down, you were informed by a supervisor that you needed to get your production percentage up. Was that something that you were made aware of before you started the job, about what would be the minimum percentage you needed to meet in order to make it out of that probationary period?
No, I didn't know how they measured your performance and how they were going to judge whether you were to remain employed with them in the beginning. All I knew is that it took you like 3 months before you became made within the union and accepted. And if you didn't work, if your work was subpar or below their standards, then they had the right to let you go. So, like if you came in and you had a lateness issue, or you were just not reliable and your performance was really bad or unsatisfactory, then they would have the right to let you go, and you couldn't get union representation. So I knew that much, but as far as like how they would judge whether you were good or not, I didn't even know what the job entailed. I only learned it like as I went on. I mean, I learned that I was going to be a meter reader when I went to the orientation, but I didn't know what that entailed, what it involved, what I was going to wind up doing, how difficult it was going to be, the situations that I was going to have to overcome once I got out into the field, the conditions, the rats, the sewage. I didn't know about that. And it wasn't until I got out there and I did those routes that I realized how difficult it was. And they had no tolerance. They didn't really care what you went through. And I kind of depicted that when I told the story about how I went to a basement where it was a lot of sewage. And rather than tell me, well, you don't have to read the meters this month because of that sewage condition, they came out and met me in the field with a pair of fireman boots that they wanted me to put on and walk through that slush to get the meat. So once I saw what was involved and what I was going to have to encounter or deal with on a day-to-day basis doing that job, I knew I can't. I'm not going to last doing this because I'm not going to continue walking through this sewage. I'm not going to keep doing that. And I knew at that point, if they decided, well, your percentage isn't up, you weren't willing to walk through that sewage like we asked you to, we want to let you go, I wouldn't have had union representation. So I put up with it that time, but then I knew this ain't going to last long.
Well, I'm asking because as the progression of the book allowed me to understand your story more, training seemed to be a huge, huge problem throughout your book, and I found that to be rather interesting, that an employee that really was interested in learning their job and what they needed to do to be successful and productive for the company was something that was not rewarded. Can you talk about how the lack of training affected your morale and your ability to work productively with the team?
Yes, it killed my morale. It killed it, because once I left that meter reader or the meter operations department where I was reading meters and I felt like I was going to a different department, the people at the Learning Center who took your application and went over with you administratively and on paper what you were going to be doing, they seemed to be very receptive and encouraging. But it's once I got to the location where I was going to work, where you dealt with the supervisors, that's where the problem was. And that's where I learned that they didn't really have anything in place to train the guys. You know, you had to basically get out there and just sink or swim. You know, they would put you with whoever was on or watch, whatever person that had the senior title already, and expect you to work with them, walk around with them all day so that you can see how the work is done, how to do the job. And that was their way of giving you on-the-job training, not factoring in that some of these people that they were sending these new hires or hirees out to work with, they weren't.
Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay up to date for more videos by clicking the bell notification icon and following our social media. For any of the people, groups, companies, or videos that were referenced in this video, don't forget to check the description and or the pinned comment section. The Question Lane, solving problems through the process of questions and answers.